Welcome everybody to Mindset Coaching this week. For Mindset Coaching, we deliver information that is relevant to everyone, something everyone can benefit from. You may be at a place where this is like hitting the nerve, ringing the bell. You may be at a place where you go back to this. So we will upload this in the members VIP portal so that we can always have reference to it. But this week is really exciting. We are completing the foundation part of the Mindset Coaching program. We have this week and next week to complete that part. And then we're going to move on into the growth part. So foundation is important before growth, right? And this week we've talked about, so just to recap, we've talked, I want to touch my screen because my other computer, I'm able to touch my screen and scroll, but on this one I have to use the scroll bar. So we've talked about what our superpower is. We've talked about how that special gift that we all have provides us with the grounds for creating a power and purpose statement. And our power and purpose statement is what grounds us, what reminds us of our foundation and why we want to get up in the morning. It's what gives us our energy when we are in alignment with that. And so knowing that's important because then we can get in alignment with it. And when we're in alignment with it, our day and our schedule works in our favor. So the next thing we've talked through is routine, setting up a routine for success. Well, how do I get in alignment with my power and purpose? How do I live my vision? I'd establish a routine. And then I make sure my attention is there. So we've gone over how to establish that attention. And these are all practices that we slowly incorporate into our lives for better success and alignment. We've gone over some tools to use, like the end of the day recap, just to make sure, again, we're setting up our schedule with purpose, we're aligning it, and then at the end of the day, we're giving ourselves another look. How did I do? How did the day go? And the process of doing that is this amazing, transformative look into ourselves so that, again, we have a strong foundation and we're establishing habits that people who are really successful in life, and it doesn't matter what you want to be successful with, you can be successful in whatever your vision is and whatever your power and purpose is. But if you establish these routines, that brings you success. And we've also talked about, how to rid overwhelm. That helps us with our foundation because as we go through these practices and as we implement them, it's not going to be easy every second. We're going to look at ourselves in the mirror and notice our weaknesses. We have the opportunity to make changes. So all of those things are happening. So we've given these little tactical ways to overcome overwhelm, to determine whether we are being emotionally reactive or whether we're being intentional. We've even given some filter questions so that as these things come up, we can make decisions. And this is how to put emotional reactions and distractions of the day into practice. So that's kind of a recap of where we've come so far. The next couple of weeks, we're on the very end of setting up that foundation. That foundation is what gives us the power to now make changes and really implement the needs that we have in mind. So I'm really excited to get there, but let's complete the foundation work. Let's give ourselves time to implement that. There was this so before I go on to the topic of today, there's this great song that I learned as a kid, and it was called The Wise Man and the Foolish Man. And it goes, the wise man, I won't sing it, but I will tell you the words to it. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and you take your hand and you build your house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the rains came down, the floods came up, but the house on the rock stood still. Christy, you're nodding. Do you know this song?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the foolish man, right? The foolish man built his house upon the sand. And the same thing happens to both men. The rains come tumbling down. And the foolish man who built his house on the sand, the house washed away, right? So it's talking about the foundations. You either have a solid, firm foundation built upon a rock, or you have a very loose, ungrounded foundation that is subject to the winds and the rains and the floods, right? Because everybody's going to get them. everybody's going to get them. It depends on your foundation, and your foundation is a choice that you make. So I love that we've gone through this whole mindset block of building the foundation. It's super important. And, here's what happens as we go through these foundational practices. A lot of times we're like, oh, I want to do that. Like, who wants to do the end of the day recap? Who wants to be that person? Who wants to get up and do their 5-minute power workout and then their power block? Do I really have to do that? Well, there's a lot of tools you can use, but these are great ones. And why get distracted? This is what you've been given. Do it. And it's okay if it's hard. So I talked to a client today, and I love check-ins with clients because we get a basis of where are we, how's it going? And what she said was, well, my devotional part of my day, so her mindset part of her day, her power block, I'm not doing so great with the devotional part of that. But I like it when I do it, and it's really good when I do it. I'm not so great with that. Well, what is great is that I've been working with her for some time now, and she's doing all these foundational things and keeping up with them, all these practices with her food, with her hydration, which is a big challenge for her, with her movement. She's doing with her mindset, all of these things that when I started working with her, each of them were struggles. Each of them were struggles. And her results reflected it, It moves slow. It moves, but it moves slow. Now it's like the second time I'm working with her. So the foundation is there. And we keep talking about how great it is this time around. And when I say this time around, everything I do is in a game plan fashion. So there's the foundational part when it's the tougher part that seems to move a little slower. And then there's the growth part. So now she's into the growth phase of her program. And it's just happening like clockwork. Her goals are happening like clockwork. There's still areas where she's struggling. And so that's what we were talking about today. Like, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. It's like part of your life. Here's where we're still struggling. Do you remember struggling with those foundational pieces? And yeah, so we were able to have that great conversation today. What we're focusing on this week with the mindset coaching, which again is part of the foundational, we have to have this in order, or when we get to that second phase, it doesn't work. There's discord. So what we're focusing on today are relationships. That's a big one. We've gone through getting our body right, talking about those 5-minute workouts at the beginning of the day, the movement. We've gone through getting our minds right, all of these foundational tools and practices we can use. Now we got to get our relationships right. And what we're going to talk about with that are some very specific outcomes. And you're going to be able to journal this and just get started on that. Remember, when we do the foundation doesn't have to be perfect. The man who built his house upon the rock, you got to check in with that foundation. You've got to make sure there's no termites in the joists that are surrounded by the concrete. You've got to make sure that the ground underneath isn't having any issues. Just because you build a strong foundation doesn't mean you don't have to pay attention to it, right? You have to keep it strong. So don't think when I say things like, oh, you've got to get your body right, that you're perfect with that. Don't worry about when I say like, you got to get your relationships right. That's a perfect thing. This is just another step and another look in the mirror. So with relationships, specifically what we're talking about are distractions and actions. Okay, so relationships, distractions, and actions. When I talk about relationship distractions, in a perfect world, and this is all you, this is again, you looking at yourself in the mirror, what do I want? What is my power and purpose? How do my relationships look in relation to that? So there's a few different relationships you have to look at. You want to look at your closest relationships, spouse, partner, best friend. You want to look at those. You want to look at your work relationships, co-workers, bosses, associates. And then you want to look at the bigger circle, your next support circle. So the first thing is to define your relationships into maybe categories, So that's the first thing. Just define your relationships. So for me, it would be husband, son. That's who I interact with most closely. I have a second son, but he's not in my immediate environment. Okay, so that's kind of a different thing. And then I have work relationships. So Christy and Joe, I work really closely with them, see them often. We have to work in collaborative concert or, we don't know what's going on. And then friends / clients, my clients are my friends, and they're the next group that I spend the most time with. And then probably the outer circle of that are my extended family members who I don't see or interact with as much as those other groups I mentioned, but that's there too, right? And so you can choose the first circle. You can choose your first two. I would encourage you to choose the first or the first two when you start working on this, because you'll find things just in those immediate circles that are most important. Okay, but those are the layers of relationships that I'm talking about. So you can have a big spreadsheet with all kinds of columns. You could just start on the first two. I encourage you to start on the first two. Maybe the first one is where you want to stop. Maybe there's enough there, but at least start on the first two, okay? Or one or two. So what are the relationships? That's the first outcome we want to journal. The second one is, what are the distractions? And the reason why we're going to focus on the distractions is because this is where we take action from. The place of distraction is where we take action from. The distractions of the people we love most and interact with most and choose most to be around, that's where we're going to get hung up the most. That's where we're going to let the boundaries that we've set gray. And like Christy's here, I can think of so many examples just with she and I where that applies. We care about the people we interact with. We don't want to hurt the people we interact with. We want the people we interact with to be happy. We know we have power, a lot of power. We can help, we can hurt. And so when we realize we have this power, what we often do is let those boundaries go gray, because we would rather someone else be okay and take it ourselves, right? And so that makes us go back to all those foundational things, like, what is my power and purpose statement? How can I use it best here? What's distracting me from that in this relationship? And so first, write out your relationships. And again, just focus on the first two phases or first two circles, however you want to think of that. And then second, what are the distractions? You may not have a lot of distractions. You may just have one or two. And again, I'm going to encourage you, one or two, pick one or two. I swear if you pick one or two, that's all you need to focus on. And then everything else will kind of fall into place. So first, what are my relationship groups? And be specific, who's in them, be very specific. Two, what are the distractions? Pick one or two. And then three, what action am I going to take about that? Okay. And that's where you have to dig in. And that's where you have to ask yourself personal questions. And that's where you have to look at it as if this is the perfect day with this relationship, how does that go? A lot of times we think in the back of our minds, I wish this person would blah, but do we tell that person that? Do we do that thing ourselves? Does that person know? And most of the time that has to do with our environment being set up for success. So again, I'll use a client example. I was talking to a client this week, and she was saying, I just have to do this for me, because he, meaning her partner, is just not going to do it. He's set in his ways. It's not his thing. He's not going to help me. And so we got to have a whole great conversation about, okay, wonderful. You've identified that. So what is the distraction? And so she was able to come up with exactly what the distractions were, when it makes her feel cringy on the inside, when her partner does X, Y, or Z. And those things that he's doing distract her from her goals, right? But she's the one, and here's another part of that. She's the one who, for example, is at work and her partner's not at work with her and might be stressed about her partner, but she's the one who walks by the vending machine and either gets the crap out of it and puts the crap into her body or walks by it, right? And so we have to know what our relationships are, choose one or two, We have to know what the distractions are, choose one or two, and then we have to write down an action. So that for that end part, here's the encouragement. Here's the outcome that you want to focus on. You want to write down an action. Look back at your other foundational mindsets. You can kind of just scroll through them in the unit, under the VIP section in the unit, mindset unit. Okay, how does this relate to my power and purpose statement? How can I use that to help me with this action? How can I remove overwhelm when I'm noticing he's distracting the mess out of me and I said I was going to take this action? How do I deal with that? You can look back at those tools. You can use your recap. How did it go? Okay, I decided to take this action. How did that go? Be okay. Okay, so that's what I'll come back to what I was just about to say. But that's what I want you to do. Write down your relationship groups. Only go 2 layers deep, all right? Write down the distractions with each of those people, with each of those relationships. Only write up to 2. I guarantee you, as soon as you get that first layer and those first couple distractions, you might stop on the first person. and you'll see that, okay, this is enough for right now. So I'm giving you a heads up there. And then the third thing is, what's the action you're going to take? What's the action you're going to take? So what I was circling back to is, when you begin writing down the actions and recapping it, when you begin writing down the actions, when you do this outcome, expect the test to come, okay? So for example, another client that I was talking with, she decided to focus on a specific family member. Well, her power and purpose statement really aligns with helping this specific family member. She really knows that she can just change the world by helping this one family member. So that's what she chose as her power and purpose statement. However, she also knows that she has grayed the boundaries with what she needs. She's like, Shar, what I'll do is I'll just help this person and give all of my time, and then the things that I need to do, I don't do them. I will just not work out, or I will just not meal prep, or I will just this or just this. I will let it all go to help that person. So here's the action I'm going to take. She had very specific action that she was going to take to give herself time and still help the other person. So she needed to learn how to say no. That was her action. But we went over, well, what does that look like? And it really wasn't no, it was, I can help you. Here's the time block I have for that. Instead of just saying yes and dropping everything and dropping herself, here's the time block. Or the other thing was, I can help you at this time, meaning a later day, a later time, you know, what fit into her calendar. She was still doing what she felt is her responsibility and her power and purpose. She was taking care of herself. So the next thing I said, and what I wanted to heads up here, is expect the test. You've dealt with it. You've established the boundary. You've established the distraction and what action you're going to take. Expect the test. Expect whoever you're dealing with, the relationship that you are working to improve. Expect the test, right? So just like when you join a coaching program, you're excited, and then you're like, oh crap, what did I just do? You have that good angel, bad angel sitting on the shoulder. You have the decision you made in the moment of motivation. That's where we're at our best. That's where we're at our best. You guys, don't deny those. And then we have the, oh crap, the test comes. So expect that, you guys. These foundational elements are so important to build on the rock. But don't expect the winds and the rains not to come. The winds and the rains are coming. Expect it, and know that you have set yourself up and you have all of these tools in order to deal with it. So it's great. That's how life works. We establish strength. We create it in our minds, in our hearts first. We put it into action, and then here come the winds and the rains. Do you really want that? Are you really that strong? And the winds and the rains don't come to hurt us. They come to show us that, yeah, we really are that strong. We're stronger. All right, so that is where we are this week, you guys. I'm excited to hear about your relationships. I'm excited to hear about the distractions and the actions. I want feedback on that. Text Christy, text myself, text in the Trainer Eyes Free to Be Fit app. We want to hear from you. I want to see it so clearly that I know exactly how that looks for you and exactly how you're feeling and exactly how you're going to go about that. We're here to help and support you. This is a safe environment, and I can't wait to see the foundation you're building so that when the rains and the winds come, you know that you're strong and you know that you can get through that to the other side, because we're not always going to be here, right? Like, you're going to be doing this normal, natural. This is just your life and how you go about it. So good luck with that. The first step is just confronting it, being aware and mapping that out. And I'm excited to get those from you guys. So we will talk soon. You guys have a great, great week. Bye.
Bye, Elizabeth.